Welcome to our weekly GPS sessions for the week beginning May the 11th. We're going to continue our work on conjunctions this week. Can you remember what a conjunction is? Just a little word of warning before we begin. We're going to be using some pictures today to get our brains working. Some of you might be a little creeped out by them. Here we go. I want you to look at the pictures that come up next, and I want you to think about how to describe them. I want you to think about how they move. Yeah, I told you, right? Ugh. It's a good job Miss Thompson's not watching this. Wow. Beautiful. Look at that. That's amazing. Just incredible. So we're going to be writing sentences about spiders. Can you make a sentence from that word, spiders? Well, looking like that you can't, because what's missing? You're right, it needs a capital letter and a full stop. Spiders. It's still not really a sentence. It could be the answer to a question. What are you most afraid of? Spiders. But it's not really a sentence. We could make it a little bit more exciting by putting an exclamation mark at the end, and now it says spiders. But it's still not really a sentence. What do we need to make a sentence? We need verbs. Do you remember? A verb is a word. It's an action word. If you can do it, then you do it. If you do it, it's a verb. How many verbs can you think of that would describe what spiders do? There are those pictures again, whilst you think. What do those spiders do? So, what do spiders do? They run, right? But run's a pretty boring verb. So I've had a think and I've thought of some synonyms for run. Can you think of any? Pause the video and have a think. So when I'd got all my synonyms, I've then tried to put them in order, and I've started with the slowest one and worked my way up to the quickest one. Crawl, creep, scuttle, skitter, scurry, dart, scamper. Those are much better. Those words are much juicier. They've got a lot more meaning in them than just run. And then I had to think, because as well as running, spiders jump, don't they? Again, that's a bit boring. So I've had another think, come up with some more synonyms. Can you think of any? I've put my synonyms in order, and this time I started at the top because I thought rather than jump, spiders might pounce on their prey. And then I've made those jumps get smaller. I've got bounce and bob and hop and shiver. It's then a good idea to think about whether those verbs are positive verbs or negative verbs. This is something I've been learning about in my training at home. So most of those verbs are quite negative. They make us shiver when we think about spiders. But one or two of them are positive verbs. These ones. Scamper makes me think of rabbits, and hopping and bobbing and bouncing and jumping. They're not quite as scary as the other words. So we could make two kinds of sentence. We can make a positive sentence and we can make a negative sentence. Let's just have a look at how to do that. So I've got my word spiders and I want to write a positive sentence. So I'm going to choose one of those verbs that we put a smiley face next to. Hop. Spiders hop. Spiders hop. Now that's a sentence when I say it, but what do I need to do to that sentence to make it a written sentence? Of course, we need a capital letter and a full stop. But that's not the only way round. We could write those two words. We could put them in the opposite order. Hop, spiders. And now it becomes a command. I'm telling those spiders what to do. Come on, you spiders. Hop. Hop, spiders. Notice that we've got a comma after the verb and an exclamation mark at the end because it tells us that we need to say that sentence in a completely different way. If I was going to do a negative sentence, I could do something very similar. So there's that word spiders. This time I'm going to add one of the other verbs to the sentence. I want to make somebody shiver or be aware that these creepy crawlies are coming along. I'm going to choose the verb scuttle. Spiders scuttle. I like the fact that both those words start with a s sound. What do I need to do to those words to make them into a written sentence? Come on, you know. Of course, a capital letter and a full stop. Can you remember what to do if we start the sentence with the verb scuttle? We're going to need to begin with a capital letter, put a comma after the verb, and an exclamation mark at the end. And now that sentence says, scuttle, spiders. Those two-word sentences aren't all that exciting. They have their uses, but we're not going very far in our descriptions. So, what could we add to our two-word sentence, spiders scuttle, to make it a little bit more interesting? Of course, we're going to add some adjectives. Remember, adjectives describe the noun. To make it easier to think of those adjectives, it's a good idea to put them into categories. First of all, we can use our senses. What something looks like, feels like when you touch it, sounds like, what noises does it make, what does it smell like, what does it taste like, how is it feeling? And can you think of any words that might describe what it's doing? So let's have a look at those pictures again, and maybe you can think of some adjectives that fit into each of these categories. What it looks like, what it feels like to touch it, the noise it makes, what it smells like, what it tastes like, maybe not even try that one, how it's feeling, and something to describe its actions. Here we go, here come those pictures. So there must be hundreds of adjectives that we could use to describe spiders. What does it look like? I've had to think really, really hard to see if I can come up with some adjectives that perhaps you might not have come up with by yourself. Scary, obviously. Bulbous, it's kind of fat and round and juicy. Bristly or hairy, one of those spiders definitely had bristly legs. Oh, it's making me shiver. Glossy, that black widow spider had a lovely black, shiny, glossy body. Sound. What does it sound like when it moves? Well, I reckon spiders are silent, but they might be rustly as well. Touch. If you were to touch a spider, if you were brave enough, what would it feel like apart from disgusting? Awful. Smooth. Tasting and smelling. We perhaps best not go there with spiders, but those kinds of adjectives would definitely work if you were describing a curry, for example. Feeling. How do you think those spiders are feeling? Can you get inside the mind of a spider? Is it irritated? Ravenous, it's so hungry. Lonely, poor spider. And then words to describe its action. I had to think really hard about this one. Patient, it's waiting in the middle of its web. It's watchful, it's watching that fly crawl towards it. Cunning, it's very clever. It's done its web in the place where it's going to catch the most spiders, the most flies. And again, we can look at these adjectives to see which ones are positive, not many of them, and which ones are negative. I did find some positive ones on purpose. So let's look now at how we put those adjectives into our sentence. I want to write a positive sentence, and there's the sentence we've already got. Oh, so how do those adjectives fit into our sentence? I'm going to write a negative sentence first, and I'm going to choose the adjective ravenous. Where would that adjective go to make this a sentence? Is it going to go before the verb or after the verb? Or maybe it could go at the end of the sentence. So, how many of those fantastic sentences can you write about spiders using just one adjective, one noun, the noun spiders, and a verb? Can you try them the other way around so that you have the noun and the verb first, finishing off with the adjective? Don't forget the comma. Can you write sentences that are both positive? That's going to be really hard. And sentences that are quite negative that make us feel quite shivery and scary. I wonder if you can also include these kinds of sentences in your next piece of writing that's on your homework sheet for this week. Give it a go. Don't forget to email us. We're looking forward to see what you can do. Bye for now.